A married teacher accused of sexually assaulting two students faces new disturbing allegations. For this story, we head to Australia, where 30-year-old Tayla Brailey faces several charges, including aggravated sexual assault, sexual intercourse with a person under care, and sexual touching. As we reported previously, the former PE teacher was arrested in August for the disturbing crime. Now she faces new allegations of sending a 16-year-old videos of herself performing sex acts in the shower. Initially, Brailey was arrested for allegations relating to a 17-year-old student. Then a little more than a week later, she faced more charges after authorities discovered messages relating to a 16-year-old on her phone. When we first reported the story in August, we learned the 17-year-old boy added Brailey on Snapchat in early June. According to police, those conversations reportedly turned sexual in nature. Brailey and the teen allegedly sent sexual photos and videos to each other. The newlywed teacher allegedly told the boy not to tell anyone about their chats and that she would get in trouble if their communications with one another were revealed. According to a previous report by the Sydney Morning Herald, police say around mid-July, the student and a friend went over to Brailey's house. Once there, the teen and Brailey began kissing each other before moving to an upstairs spare bedroom where they allegedly engaged in a sexual act. The student's friend allegedly walked into the room while this was taking place, then walked out. The next assault allegedly took place while Brailey was on duty at the high school in late July. Police say Brailey told the student she had free time for an hour and they left school together, but in their own cars. Police claim they both stopped at a private location. Brailey exited her car and entered the student's car, where she allegedly sexually assaulted him in the backseat of his car. Brailey then reportedly went to a pharmacy to buy emergency contraception. After the assault, the two stopped talking until Brailey reached out to the student asking if he had told anyone about what happened between them, which he denied. But Brailey reportedly told the 17-year-old she heard that he had told people and said they couldn't speak anymore before blocking him on Snapchat. Then police got involved. There are a lot of disturbing stories that we cover here at Law&Crime, just like this one. And part of the reason we're able to keep bringing you these types of stories is because of our great sponsors. So I want to really quickly thank Upside for sponsoring us. So if you're wondering what's Upside, well, it's a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas and groceries. And it's actual real cash back too. The money appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. So here's what you do. You download the Upside app, then claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. I went to 7-Eleven, got some candy, some other snacks, used the app, and honestly, it's super easy. You can use the app at places like Shell, Exxon, fast food favorites like Taco Bell, and that's just to name a few. So to find out how much you could earn, download Upside or click the link in the description and use our promo code LCNews to get 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Again, that's promo code LCNews for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. On August 6th, police went to the high school in response to reports Brailey had been grooming other students at the school and was sending naked photos and videos, as officers reportedly spoke to two students about the troubling allegations. When police spoke to Brailey herself in a classroom, she reportedly became hysterical and said, "I'm going to jail, aren't I? I'm going to lose my family, my husband, my job." During a police interview, Brailey allegedly made detailed admissions about the sexual intercourse with the teen student in his car. When authorities spoke with the boy, he reportedly described feeling like he had to send the photos and videos of himself to keep Brailey happy. When police searched the 17-year-old's phone, it allegedly revealed several hidden videos showing him and Brailey performing sexual acts over FaceTime. Now, weeks after those allegations came to light, more troubling allegations. Brailey allegedly also sent a 16-year-old videos of herself performing sex acts in the shower, writing, "I'm horny for you." Just like the 17-year-old, the former teacher allegedly told the 16-year-old not to tell anyone about their conversations because she was worried about her husband finding out. Plus another shocker. In another incident, she allegedly performed a sex act on the teen in her classroom, then tried to lure the boy into having sex with her by pulling down her pants and underwear. According to reports, she was allegedly sexually abusing the 16-year-old and 17-year-old around the same time. Brailey has been out on bail since her arrest and is reportedly under strict bail conditions, which include being required to live with her parents. She's only allowed to leave her parents' home if she's accompanied by one of them. She must abide by a curfew and report to police 3 times a week. As Brailey is set to have another court hearing later this month, she reportedly isn't required to attend after her attorney's request due to intense media scrutiny. Now, we have a lot to break down in this case, and joining me to discuss it further is Law and Crime legal analyst Julie Rendelman. Now, Julie, it's always great to see you. This case is down under, it's in Australia. A 30-year-old teacher accused of abusing not one, but two students around the same time frame. What's your reaction, especially in light of these new allegations, sending photos and videos to the teen, and on top of that, allegedly doing these sex acts in a classroom?
So Elizabeth, we've talked about these type of crimes many times. Usually, it happens in the. We talk about it. Every case we talk about is in the United States. So this is the first time I think that I can recall that we're now talking about these incidents happening in other countries. Um, and I assume that just like it happens here, it happens there. I think it's always troubling to hear a teacher violate that line between teacher and student, and not just violate it once, but multiple times, and not just violate it to the extent she did, but then ask the child, the student, to keep it quiet so that other people, don't know about it. So to further burden them on the crimes that she's committed against them.
And like you just mentioned, we do cover a lot of these types of cases here at Law and Crime. A young female teacher, sometimes married, sometimes not, accused of sexually abusing teenagers. And oftentimes you kind of see a pattern within these stories. The teachers add these students on social media. They begin a conversation that would end up turning sexual. In your opinion, why do you think this is so common? And do you think it's a form of digital, or excuse me, do you think it's a digital form of grooming?
So it's a great question. Without an easy answer. I mean, years ago when I was in school, we did not have social media. Someone made a phone call to us, we didn't know who it was on the other line when we answered the call. And so, in a sense, does it make it easier for grooming to happen? Potentially, because now you can do it through text, through phone calls, through pictures. And you can almost test the waters when you text or contact someone through social media to see what their responses are going to be. That is not to say that these crimes didn't happen years before, but I think that they're coming to light more often because remember now it's not he said, she said, it's he said, she said, plus texts, videos, and messages. So when prosecutors are looking to prosecute these cases, they have often a trove of evidence that's not just coming from the victim themselves.
And one thing that stuck out to me was the student told police that he felt like he had to keep sending photos and videos of himself to keep Brayley happy. What does that tell you about how victims in these types of situations kind of feel trapped in a way?
I think a lot of people like to say, oh, a male student, 17, is not being victimized when a 30-year-old teacher is attracted to him or makes advances at him. And I think that's just completely misguided. A 17-year-old kid in school, while it may appear from the outside to be something some people even laugh about, it's not a laughing matter. And you're putting a child in a position to really not know how to navigate, how to handle it. Especially, remember, he's dealing with an adult. He's dealing with an adult that is in a position of power. He's dealing with an adult with power of which no one knows about. His family doesn't know about. His parents don't know about. And so I think it's incredibly difficult for a child in that position to kind of figure out what the right move is, and also not to succumb when a teacher opens the door to such inappropriate behavior.
When authorities spoke to Brayley at the school, she reportedly said, "I'm going to jail, aren't I? I'm going to lose my family, my husband, my job," which signals to me and possibly you too that she knew what she was doing was illegal and she knew it was wrong. Why do you think she allegedly continued to do this, knowing the consequences she could face?
Many people, when they commit crimes, don't think they're going to get caught. And this is a perfect example because she didn't commit the crime with just one student. She then committed the additional crimes with a second student. So she clearly thought that she was going to be able to get away with it. And it's not until all of a sudden the police are at her door that she realizes, what was I thinking? How did I not realize that I was going to get caught? Hoping and praying that these kids would not come forward, hoping and praying that their parents wouldn't look at their text messages and see what was going on. And so it's not surprising when someone commits a crime like this that they don't expect to be caught, but then when they are, recognize that there's really no way out.
And sometimes in these cases, I always wonder, would it be treated differently if the defendant was a man? Now, given that Brayley is out on bail, she has to live with her parents, abide by a curfew, and report to police 3 times a week, among other bail conditions. In your opinion, was that sufficient enough given the allegations she faces? And say, if this case were in New York per se, do you think she would have even been given bail?
So it's a great question. I think the bail laws in New York certainly have changed quite a lot. And so courts are more inclined to release an individual with certain rules that, as long as they're able to follow those rules, they'll remain out. And so the question, and I assume it's the same in Australia, is the likelihood of her fleeing, the likelihood that she'll return to court, the seriousness of the charge, and all those things combined. I think there have been some discussions, at least in this case, that there's some potential mental health issues that may have promulgated, may have assisted or pushed her forward in committing some of these crimes. So that might be also a factor the judge considered when he was navigating what the appropriate bail should be.
In your opinion, kind of what goes through a victim's mind when they have to deal with something like this, where, in the past, years ago, people might have just high fived the victim, being like, oh, it's cool you're sleeping with the teacher. But now we know it is sexual abuse. What are your thoughts on just like how a victim feels in these types of situations? They are teenagers and kind of going through their own form of puberty. But what kind of goes through their minds when something like this happens to them?
I think it varies. I think, you may have a 17-year-old or 16-year-old who high fives his friends. That doesn't necessarily mean that he feels good about it, and it doesn't make it right. It's still a crime. And so I'm sure there's various emotions that go on. Remember, some of these young boys and girls, this is potentially what they view as their first love. They think they have sometimes a connection to this person, and they really don't. And they don't realize that the perpetrator, the teacher, has completely undermined what they view as what a teacher, what someone they're supposed to look up to is supposed to be. And so I'm sure that they go through many emotions, and not necessarily view themselves always as a victim, but that does not mean they're not.
All right, Julie, thank you again so much. I appreciate your time today. The Education Department did suspend Tayla Brailey without pay following the allegations. The next hearing in her case is slated for October 30th. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.